Hello and welcome back to season 2 of the Health Hunt podcast. Today I have my first in-person guest, which is Kegs or Kiar. I hope everyone enjoyed all of season 1. Like I mentioned in the last season that I wanted it to be a solo season, just an introduction to what I'm all about, the topics I want to cover. And obviously I'm going to cover in so much more topics this time around, and I'm going to get the honour of interviewing a lot of my closest friends, a lot of people that inspire me, and a lot of people that I just want to, like, I suppose, open up very, very interesting topics, and we're going to talk about a few here today. So I suppose if you want to take it from the top about the awkward question of who you are, what you do, how you've gotten here to Bali, how we met each other.
I just want to say thank you for letting me be your first guest. I was like, oh my God.
Of course.
I suppose, how did I get to Bali? That's a big question, oh my goodness. So to start off, we're going to take a deep breath in because I have got some chaotic energy right now. The universe has tested me this morning. I just had to drive like over an hour with no Google Maps on my phone because I didn't have a phone. I'm like, how the hell do people drive places without Google Maps? Like, how do they do that? But anyway, right, we're going to take a deep breath in and release with sound.
I can't take you seriously when you do that with the sound.
So this is a wee tip for anyone. I've learned this over the past couple of months. If you're ever feeling any stress, anxiety, any of those negative emotions that are coming to the surface, or your brain's just going chitter chatter and it just won't shut up, if you take a deep breath in and release with sound, it helps like vibrate out those energies. So you just go like, my family were here for 3 weeks and I kept doing it and they were like, stop doing that in public, that's so embarrassing. What's wrong with you?
It's really helped me recently. Like, it helps regulate your nervous system and get you into the parasympathetic side of it. Even if you forget to kind of inhale, if you can just do a big sigh, like if you don't want to make the noises Kegs made, like but if you don't want to make those noises, just even a sigh, it's really good at like regulating your nervous system and getting you back into the side that can help you think clearly and not feel that chaotic and not feel so overwhelmed, because it's so easily done. We've both had a bit of a back-to-back busy day. I think yours was a little bit worse than mine. I tried a heels dance class for the first time today and had other things going on as well, so I think that just fucked me up a little bit because it was so out of my comfort zone, and now I'm like, have to be on the ball recording. But we're all good. We've taken a few deep breaths. We've both been doing Reiki. Kegs has been doing breathwork, so we're both just, I do you know what I love that about our friendship, that we can have fun but we can also have deeper chats and kind of connect with those kind of things without feeling weird around each other, you know?
Yeah, that's one thing that I really love about Bali, is that whenever you get like close connection with someone, the conversations you just have are so substantial and like deep, and you can learn and grow from each other as well, which is amazing. So look, I haven't even got into the part of the question you asked at the start. I've just distracted myself. I go off in spirals all the time. So my name is Cahar Kern, but I am known as Kegs. I am from a wee place called Lochmacurry, which is like County Tyrone, Northern Ireland, north of Ireland, whatever you want to call it. And I suppose I've been travelling. I sort of grew up, had a normal enough life, and then towards like late teenage years, I sort of discovered that I was gay, and I sort of went through like a really, really dark period of my life for like a good couple of years. And then it got to a point where I really hit rock bottom, like loads of bad shit was just happening. And then I went traveling. I was like, you know what, frig this. So I just left and went traveling. And I thought I was only going to go away for a few months and go back to uni after the summer. And it's, what's 5 years later now? 4 or 5 years later, I've not stopped traveling. And from that, I've got into spirituality. I've got into social media, which is what I do as like my job. And I've sort of really, really found out a lot about myself, and I have grown so much as a person. And not only have I grown so much as a person, I see life and I see the planet and I see everything around me as so much more positive and so much more amazing and beautiful. Which I really love. And then I suppose now I sort of do a bit of everything. I do a bit of TikTok, I do a bit of podcasting. I've learned how to become a breathwork facilitator recently. So I started doing a few spiritual ceremonies and a few spiritual retreats. And I could see myself sort of going down their sort of route. I've recently had a hair transplant, which was a big journey for me as well.
The glow up.
And not only was it a journey like physically with my hair, it was a journey mentally, which we might get into in a minute. And I suppose then I came to Bali. I can't believe it's been 6 months. I've been here for half a fucking year. You can curse, can't you?
Yeah,
I heard you
of
say that.
course. Yeah.
Of course.
We
Keeping it real.
authentic as fuck on this podcast.
Keeping it real, bitches. So yeah, I've been in Bali now for 6 months, and I think I met you as soon as I got here, didn't I?
Yeah, you moved into my villa. I think you moved in like 2 or 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
But we met pretty much straight away, yeah.
We met the first night, I think.
Yeah,
We went for dinner.
yeah. I think you moved into Sinead's, didn't you, for a while?
I was in Sinead's for like the first like week or two, but we were doing different things, like we were in Gilly Tea and things like that. And then moved in with you.
Like the glow up for you though, I just want to say, like, you were a completely different person when you came here. Like, I remember how anxious he was. Like, he was literally so, when I say lost,
Oh yeah.
yeah, lost, very much like didn't know what he was meant to be doing. Kind of came here, was, I think that happens to a lot of people though with Bali. You're kind of like, do I belong here? Do I fit in? What am I going to be doing here? Obviously the way of living here is very different. You had gone to Mexico beforehand, and which we'll get into.
Yeah.
So you had kind of gone to a similar enough place and kind of explored spirituality, but that's with that side of things. But I think you came here and you were kind of like, I feel like something's missing from my life. I want a little bit more purpose. Wasn't that kind of how you were feeling?
Yeah, I feel like with me, obviously I went to Mexico and I was kind of getting into spirituality, and I really like dove deep into it when I was there. But then whenever I left Mexico, I lost touch with the whole spiritual side of things, and I really went back into sort of the ego way of living in a way. Like I was still connected a teensy bit, but nothing like it was before.
Yeah.
I went back into the sort of ego and was living. I thought I was loving life, and then obviously came to Bali. And I realized, oh my God. So basically in Mexico, I thought I had done all the work. I'd done ayahuasca a few times. After it was like, oh my God, I've healed all my trauma. I'm fucking, listen, like everything's sorted. My life is fucking sorted. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, I had that mentality. And then boy, was I fucking wrong. I have still now to this day so much work to do. And I know for a fact I'll be working on myself for the rest of my life. But when I came to Bali, loads of the things, because Bali I think is so spiritual and energy so heightened, I think it brought a lot of shit to the surface. And it just basically was like, here you go, you need to go and do the work on yourself. So that's what I more or less did. I was sort of forced into it. My anxiety when I first got here was not wise. And you definitely helped me a lot through that as well, because I moved in with this gal and she is filled with wisdom, filled with knowledge, and she knows her shit, so she definitely helped me get through a lot of things. So
I know, straight away we were going into the deep conversations. we knew each other like 2 minutes, and it was like, so what about your trauma? But I think it's like where to start. Like there's so much to kind of unpack from your journey, and I think your journey is very inspiring, like from things from spirituality, living in Ireland, and being part of the LGBT community, LGBTQ community. Like I suppose we're similar in terms of like we love a party, we love enjoying life, having fun, going dancing, getting wild. But at the same time, we do feel like we need that balance. We need to be connected, and I think we have, like, we're both in the same mindset that we feel like we're always a work in progress, but not, I think, like what you said, you can feel like you've done it, and you can feel like you're healed, you're fixed, that's you done forever now. And then you can almost feel lost again when you're like, what the fuck just happened? I thought I had my whole life figured out.
Yeah.
I suppose if we take it back to, if you want to, go back to Ireland, and kind of how you, like, what made you leave in the first place and go traveling?
So I would say I definitely always wanted to go traveling. I remember when I was like growing up, my uncle was like in his 20s and he was traveling the world and just looked incredible, and I always knew that I definitely wanted to do something like that. When I was in school, I had an alright time in school the first couple of years, and then maybe in my last few years I was really struggling with like my sexuality, and I was really struggling because where I'm from it's like Gaelic football, lads, that sort of mentality. I went to an all boys school, and I really remember from like a very young age that I knew I was kind of different at the start, but I really morphed myself into one of the lads. Like I really tried to walk more manlier, talk more manlier, be good at football, all that their sort of stuff, go out and pull all the girls like at their sort of vibe. That's what I was basically pretending to be someone else that I wasn't, so I would fit in, and that really eventually took a toll on me. And I wasn't even aware of it. Looking back, obviously I know now that's what the case was, but I was not aware of it. I was keeping up an appearance, I was lying to everyone about who I was, but I was also lying about stupid things as well then, and it really just negatively affected me. And I think people maybe started to catch on, I don't know, but I basically then started having a really hard time where I became really isolated my last few years in school. I got really in my head. I started suffering with really bad depression. I didn't want to do anything. All I wanted to do was sleep or else go out and get fucked. And which is what I was ended up doing, which in a toxic cycle of doing for a few years.
That kind of escapism. Yeah.
Definitely. But then I went to Belfast. So I basically, actually, my last day of school, I had enough and I was just like, I need to get out of here. So I got a one-way flight to Ayia Napa in Cyprus on my own. And I basically met a girl who had done it before, and I was like, you know what, this is a wee escape, why not? So I got the taste of it, went to Ayia Napa for the summer, got away from Ireland. And it was the first time I started being myself a wee bit more. Like, obviously it was still like nowhere near what I am now, but I still started to be a wee bit more free in a way, and I got the taste of it. Then I came home from the summer, went to a company where I was basically doing an apprenticeship, where I was working for a company called Deloitte, and I was working 4 days a week. They were paying for my degree and stuff, like an amazing opportunity in, say, like my mothers and my teachers and them sort of people's eyes. But I went back to Belfast, and then I went back into the sort of negative headspace, and I was really then struggling again. And I was basically working for them, going out every night, and just like the same like toxic cycle. And I just like was not happy at all, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And because I was in such a negative headspace, I then started attracting way more negative situations to come into my life. And eventually, I'll not get deep into the negative situations, but eventually, a year and a half later, in the space of like maybe a month, looking back, it was the universe like basically kicking me up the ass, being like, you need to get out of this situation. So I basically got sacked from the job, kicked out of uni. I basically left my relationship, and a few other different things had happened as well. And I was just like, I don't even care. I don't know how much money I have. I don't know how much money I need. I'm just going to go. And I think I booked a one-way flight to Mallorca. That's when it was. Yeah, I booked a one-way flight to Mallorca and went there, and then ended up going Mallorca to like Australia, to Ibiza, to ski season, to Miami, to all these different places all over the world over the past few years, just getting random jobs here and there. And yeah, I suppose that's how I started my traveling journey in a way.
And what did it feel like for you? I suppose it's, if we kind of think back to like the school system and stuff like that, and like typically in Ireland, it's like go to college, get a good job, kind of live your life that way. What did it feel like for you stepping out of that? Did you feel good in that? Did you feel like it was difficult to be different to other people? Did you even think about that? Was it just following your intuition and doing what feels good for you?
That's a good question. I feel like, looking back, I hated my life that much that I didn't give a fuck. I was just like, I need to get out of this situation. I need like away. I need the freedom again. I need to just do something else. And I just loved that time living in Cyprus and Ayia Napa. Like, it was partying season, to be fair, partying all the time. And I just loved that. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do that again. So I just went and did that again. And then from doing that, then I got offered other jobs in different places and things too.
I think there's a lot to be said for if you're in an environment where you don't feel like you can be yourself, to step outside of that, to actually take that action and make change. Like, obviously yours goes a lot deeper when it was to do with your sexuality and kind of shame living in that area. And I suppose it's an identity change. It's like you, like maybe it was your true identity all along, obviously, but for you to kind of change who you are as a person in front of the people that love you the most or that have known you this whole time. I think it's very difficult to just suddenly be like one day, okay, I'm going to be different now. I think a lot of people get stuck in that mentality that they don't want to, like, if they feel in their soul, they feel in their intuition or their vision for their life that they want to do something differently, that like if they want to live differently, travel differently, whether it's their sexuality, whatever it is, they get stuck in that mindset that they can't change, they can't step out from the herd, I suppose. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, I suppose by me sort of going out of my comfort zone and just being like, you know what, fuck it, hopefully it all works out, which is what it did. And I think that's sort of how I got into sort of spirituality as well, because I started living with a sort of fuck it mentality and just hoping that everything will sort of work out. And I just...
Do you think that was spirituality at the start though?
No, but I think that's how I got, like, sort of maybe got to that point.
Yeah, I think it gives you a bit of hope, like when you're at your lowest with your mental health, when you can actually see when you release or surrender or let go of all these worries or shit that doesn't really fucking matter, that you're actually like, oh, this isn't actually that bad as I thought it was, as of all these stories and all these thoughts that were consuming me this whole time. And I think when you kind of put one foot under the other and just trust, that kind of leads you onto a path of spirituality rather than that like pessimistic way of life and kind of viewing things so negatively, like being riddled with fear. I think if you actually have that hope and that belief in something like that things will work out for you. I think that gives you that step into spirituality. Like, I think for me, I was so fixated on like science. I had depression as well, really, really bad, didn't see anything improving at all. And then when I kind of started to think of the bigger picture and just let go of friendships, quit jobs, all that kind of thing, same as you, that I was like, oh my God, there is a bit more of a life beyond what I have known to date, you know, that kind of way. And I think that's what, with depression for me anyways, was the hope that gave me that step in the right direction, that push, I suppose.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it. I think when I started as well, though, I just sort of was just winging it. I was just going with the flow, just enjoying it, at life in that moment. And that's what I look back on. Like, I look back at, say, my Ibiza season, and I had the best fucking summer ever because I was living in the moment. But like, I didn't really have any aspirations to be successful. I didn't really have any aspirations to sort of do the work on myself or any of that there sort of stuff at that time until maybe towards the end of the summer. But I was just living in the moment, and I had so much fun. Couldn't do it now, do not get me wrong, because man wants to be successful, and if I'm partying 5 nights a week, that's not gonna happen. But do you know what I mean?
I can't keep up. I can't do shit like that anymore. My body's like, hell no. No
I know,
way.
I'm going out this weekend, and I'm like, right, I'm gonna have to take like a week to sort
Your
myself.
birthday.
My birthday, bitches.
So that would have been 2020?
Wait, what? Ibiza?
Yeah,
Ibiza 2019.
2019. Okay, and then we go to 2020. That was Mexico.
Yes, so basically COVID was already going on at this stage. I'd done Ibiza for 2 years before that. I'd done like Miami and a few different things before that. And then at them things were sort of a lot more party seasons and party traveling. Like, that's what I was working like in nightclubs and pool parties and stuff like that. Then I had started social media when COVID, like after Ibiza, and then basically I was living in Manchester, and Boris Johnson had just announced another lockdown, and a few of my mates were like, should we go to Mexico? It's open. And we were like, okay, fuck it. So we went the day before the lockdown started, and we were like the only people in the airport, and we were going to go for 2 weeks. So I went to Mexico. I'd never heard of Tulum before, didn't know anything about it, did not know what to expect. I was just thinking of like Mexico, like desert or like sand and like cartel and just all this mad shit. Like, I was not expecting it to be the way it was. And when we got there, I was like, this place is unreal, and there'd be like spiritual signs everywhere. I just got a really like sort of spiritual vibe, and I had a spiritual awakening in Ibiza in the 2019 summer. That's when I had my spiritual awakening, and I can remember this to this day, the feeling of it. And then after that, all these spiritual like messages and things started coming to me, and that's when I started doing like research and like listening to podcasts and books and shit like that to get more into it. And like, when I went to Mexico, I was a wee bit into it, but like I wasn't like that deep into it. And when I was in Tulum, I was like, oh my God, this place is definitely like lots of spiritual vibes here, like, because there was like signs, just like spiritual signs all over the trees and everything. It was just like proper jungle. It was really cool. And I remember then, it was maybe the summer before, I had remember reading or hearing something about ayahuasca, and then I started doing a bit of research on it, and I had basically wanted to do ayahuasca that like time, and I didn't know where to do it. And
So did you know about ayahuasca before you went to Mexico?
yeah, I knew what it was. I think I knew, do you know how I knew how it was? Remember the Simpsons movie? And Homer is basically drinks this medicine, and the woman with the big tits is like swinging, and she's like, like that there. I remember watching that, and I was interested into what it was, because I was like, there's probably something on this planet like that. So I remember reading about ayahuasca from that, I think, and then I heard like Joe Rogan and things like that talking about it. So yeah, I went to Mexico, and I was literally thinking about it that morning. I was like, Tulum's really spiritual. I bet you they do that here. And that evening, I was in my barber's. My barber started talking to me about how his friend had done ayahuasca the other day, and I was like, I literally just manifested the situation. So got the guy's number, and I'm not even joking, 2 weeks later, I think, something like that, I was on a bus to the middle of the jungle on my own to do ayahuasca for the first time.
How long was your retreat for?
So the sessions that I done was just one sitting, so it was like overnight. And I ended up doing that 4 times when I was in Mexico. But that really got me into sort of the spiritual community in a way, and I started meeting lots of spiritual people and learning from them. And then I'd done a few other like spiritual retreats and ceremonies when I was out in Mexico as well. And then I started just doing a lot more like reading and podcasts and listening and stuff and talking about it more.
And how has ayahuasca changed your life?
Ayahuasca has changed my life in many ways. So the main one for me from my first ayahuasca sitting is that has completely changed my relationship with my family. So me and my family have always been like a decent family, like just like a normal family. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I remember their sound, like, but I remember because of my sexuality, where I'm from, things like that, I really started living two separate lives. I really distanced myself from my family, and I just wasn't close with them in the sense that I didn't tell them anything about my life, and I just wasn't close to them at all. And there was something that happened a few weeks before that where there was a bit of a disagreement in my family, and it just wasn't really like a nice situation. And then I took the ayahuasca or whatever, and I started basically seeing a different perspective on my parents, and like seeing them with a lot more love and compassion, and seeing how they were just trying their best and everything like that. And I started seeing myself in a different light, and seeing I'm just trying to do my best, and we're all just humans living on this planet trying to do our best, trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And it's really, after that ceremony, the first thing I want to do is like speak to my mum and dad. And like since that night, I remember for a fact my relationship with both my parents is just incredible. Like I literally speak to them nearly every single day, tell them absolutely everything about my life. Not everything, I wouldn't really tell them about some of the stuff they don't want to know about, but after my relationship's class, and they were just here in Bali with us there for 3 weeks, and we had the best time ever. And that was probably my favorite thing that I took from ayahuasca at the time. But obviously there was loads and loads and loads of things that came to you, so lots of things that I would have maybe had guilt for came to the surface for me to look at and sort of let go of, although it came to the surface. But you have to integrate what happens, and I don't think I integrated it at the time because it came up again when I'm in Bali, and now I feel like I've let go of it. So it's a lot to do with, it's going to bring the stuff to the surface for you to like work on yourself, but you actually have to bring what you learn and what comes up and take it into the real world and integrate it, and actually like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so important. I think a lot of the time when we do things like this, healing modalities, therapies, breathwork, breakthroughs, journaling, anything, a lot of the time we can have these breakthroughs, we can have these realizations of something that's in our subconscious, of something that happened before with trauma. But if we don't integrate them, so like process them and give ourselves closure on them, and kind of like, I suppose, see what we can learn from and see how we can release it, we are going to experience it time and time again. It's still going to be there. It's still going to be something that's like a block, a limiting belief, a barrier, something that affects our nervous system, how we show up. And that's a really important part of spirituality, and I think just self-development work and like working on your mental health. I think when I started off, it was always like read all the books, go to the talks, listen to the podcast, but I never actually reflected on how I could internalize that myself, or how it could improve me, or how it could help me heal from my past. So it was a lot of the time, it was like all the external things I was reaching for, not realizing that it was the internal work that I had to do myself. And I think like, so I want to bring up obviously plant medicine today. I want to bring up other healing modalities. At the end of the day, it is all about, like, regardless of if say it's plant medicine, it is going to be kind of mind altering, or if it is breath work and it changes your chemical state, or if it's just you doing meditation or sitting with your thoughts and journaling. At the end of the day, it all comes down to you. It all comes down to you processing, and you, like, there's going to be fear. There's going to be you being scared to face what's there. Like,
it's not an easy process. You're going into the really dark parts of you that you've been avoiding.
Yeah.
But it's so fucking worth it whenever you actually do get to those parts afterwards, obviously.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me at the moment, is I'm learning to integrate my shadow. And shadow is kind of like the dark side of you. And I had heard about shadow work before, and I tried to do it. I tried to sit down with a workbook and a journal, and this just doesn't resonate with me. But I think what I've learned now is I can have these dark, unhealed sides of me, but I can also be my authentic self at the same time. It's learning to bring your shadow and your light together and honoring that's who you are. It's not trying to be like, I always kind of thought that I had to be like the best version of myself, which meant without any of these issues, or without kind of, I suppose, negative thoughts popping up every so often, or when I go into a situation with conflict. Both of us have the same experience where we kind of shut down because we can't cope.
I was actually going to touch on that. So basically something that's been coming up this week for me a lot is I'm becoming very aware of, so I feel like I've been really connected to myself the past few weeks, and I've become very aware of my emotions and my thoughts, but I've also become very aware of memories that are coming to the surface, and negative memories. I'd say 3 in particular that are really standing out for me have come to the surface. And before, if a negative memory comes up, you avoid it, you don't want to look at it, you put it out, you push it away, you're like, why the fuck's that coming up? I don't want to look at that right now. But what I've been doing instead is I've been like, on like being like, that's interesting, like why is that negative memory coming to my surface right now, like why am I thinking about that moment? And it's obviously because when that negative situation may have happened in your life, a negative energy is going to be trapped from that situation. So it could be like grief or anger or any of those sort of things. And like you're saying, in conflict, I can't stand up for myself. Well, I haven't been able to stand up for myself in conflict, or like I can't get my point across in arguments or anything, because I just freeze. I freeze completely. And a memory came up where basically a teacher when I was like 7 or 8 was screaming at me, and I froze and I couldn't stand up for myself. And I had basically suppressed that sort of small t trauma from that when I was 7 for 18 years now. And those 18 years, because of that one small situation when I was a child, that is what's been blocking me from being able to speak up in those situations. So whenever, like what I'm basically saying is, whenever those memories do come to the surface for you, if that does happen, don't just push it away. Actually, maybe journal about it or meditate on it and try and understand why it's come to the surface and understand why it's affecting you now in your adult life.
Yeah, and I suppose don't be afraid to seek professional help, because sometimes these memories can be like surface level things. Like it was just something that, so with trauma, it's based on your perspective, okay? So obviously you just mentioned big T and little t. So we can have small t trauma, which can be something that when you explain to someone, they might be like, are you messing? Like what's hardly fucking trauma? Then you've got big T trauma, which is like the classic like war, rape, murder, all that kind of stuff, which people would consider to be that actual trauma. But the definition of trauma has changed, so it's more so working with the individual and on their perception. So you might have trauma that you might think is not bad enough to seek professional help, but it doesn't matter about what's classified as like bad enough. It's basically how it's affecting you. So like I had some things to work through this year as well, that I was freezing and I was shutting down. Like my first few months in Bali, I was a shell of myself. I really wasn't coping well at all.
I met you after, didn't I?
Yeah, just like I literally, like that weekend that we did, I did Udara Sundays, where you do what's the first thing? Yoga, ecstatic dance, and then sound healing. I had done like a kind of a
full moon ceremony.
Yeah, we did a full moon ceremony in a lovely circle, very wholesome. And then during the week I had done like a womb energetic healing. And I didn't realise I had sexual trauma to that level stored within me. And I even remember discussing it, and it was like explaining like what had happened, and she was like, that's major trauma. And I was just like, but it doesn't affect me, or like other traumas that had affected me a lot more than that one, say. She was saying that that's not it doesn't matter, basically, like who perceives that as what. It's basically to do with yourself. And then obviously I'm doing my clinical trauma course now, and that's what I'm learning so much more about. So it's really about how like you might be able to start the self-development work and really go deep and like get really, really far. And then you might have these kind of, I wouldn't even say last remaining, like we said, we're always a work in progress, but you might continue to experience things that are really hard to get through, or you might from the start find it very difficult to get the needle moving, that it's just too difficult to cope with. And that's where these external modalities come in. That's where you can go to do breath work, and it's like facilitated by someone that is trained effectively and professionally, and you can go to like therapy. And another thing I want to talk about is therapy. Have you ever done therapy before? Yeah, I think a really big thing that I'm learning now about with my trauma course is that we need to change how we talk about, or we need to change the treatment of people with trauma. So it's not talk therapy, so counselling and traditional therapy, that it's really bringing the body on board. So you're regulating your nervous system. So like in that situation, you were freezing and shutting down. In those situations, for me, I was freezing and shutting down. There's nothing that we can talk about that's going to help us move out of that state in our nervous system, because we kind of have the dissociated or shut down state of the nervous system. Then you've got your fight or flight, and then you've got the kind of social engagement happy zone, I suppose. So for you to move those into those different states and be able to actually, so you might have had the freeze response, and when you uncover that memory, you were able to actually feel into that anger or that fear or whatever, and that helped you get into the fight or flight. Once you kind of process it, you can move into, now it's not that straightforward obviously, but it can help you if you bring the body on board. And that's why I think the likes of like here in Bali is just so amazing, how you can do all these things so readily. Like I'm only back 2 weeks and I have done so many things already, and like I just had such a nice little spiritual weekend, and obviously we had heavy emotions recently, and that has just given me such a reset button. And this stuff is starting to, like, I suppose there's a domino effect and it's coming out across the world. People are even doing stuff online as well, which is so amazing. But what do you want to share your first experience with breathwork and how you've kind of gotten to wanting to be a teacher with that?
Interesting. So with breathwork, I'm going to start off actually by saying my second and third ayahuasca ceremonies, I basically had this thing where ayahuasca told me that I've got healing hands is what it told me, but that my purpose in life is to help heal people and to help people become like self-aware and things like that as well, but to really help heal people into becoming the best versions of themselves. And I was like, how the hell am I going to be able to do this? Like, what does this even mean? And it was just, the whole thing was a bit mad. It was a bit woo-woo. I was like, healing hands, like, do I have superpowers? Like, what does this mean? And then obviously it came to Bali, and before I came to Bali, I started getting Reiki done on me. And I think because I was so I think the Reiki really had a powerful effect on me when I was doing it back in Belfast before I came to Bali. And I really had like outer body experiences. I had really felt the intense energy through my body and in my hands, and that's when I really started to get like noticing how like feeling the energy properly, and I was like, this is really interesting. I had a few different experiences in and out of sleep, and just all this stuff was happening, and it just started like letting me know about the healing like abilities there are in the world, because I definitely did feel so much better and so much lighter whenever I had done Reiki, or someone had done Reiki on me. So then obviously come to Bali, and I had heard, obviously I was doing meditation. I had tried different meditation courses and things, and yes, meditation is great, do not get me wrong, but I just really couldn't fully get into it. And there was stages that I absolutely loved it, like I done Sinead's course, it was great and things like that. And you feel great after, but I wasn't getting any of the really deep shit that I have stored inside me that has come up in breathwork. None of it was really coming up for me during meditation. Don't get me wrong, everyone is different, so meditation might be amazing for some people, but for me, I couldn't get any of the really like deep shit.
It's funny, isn't it? I vibe more with meditation than breathwork.
So what I've heard from a few people is that breathwork is a lot more masculine and meditation is a lot more feminine. So breathwork's amazing, a lot more. I don't know if it's a lot more for men. Don't quote me on that, but I think it really suits men, and meditation maybe suits girls a bit more. But
but even like masculine and feminine energies don't
even
have to be
that is
male
very,
or
very
female
true
as well.
So I agree.
So like some people would be very masculine oriented. Like I know a lot of girls who are very in their masculine, and for some people that's kind of out of their natural state, and they're trying to bring more of the feminine on board. But for some people, they just are more in their masculine, and some men are more in their feminine, and that's absolutely fine. But I think that's probably it a little bit. I think for me, I'm really open to it now. I'm really making myself stick with it and to try and give it a chance and not to kind of get closed off from it, because I think as well, a part of it is going into your fight or flight, so your sympathetic part of your nervous system where you are heightened and it feels like scary, it feels out of control, it feels like you're having an anxiety attack almost for me. So when I feel like I'm kind of losing control, or I feel like I'm losing my breath, or it's that kind of uptight that I'm like, I just want to meditate now and calm the fuck down. So I think that's why it's something to persevere for myself, but it's not something that I resonate or feel comfortable with maybe straight away. But I'm going to keep going with it, and I'm going to keep going to your lovely sessions.
Yes, do. But yeah, with breathwork then, so you were talking about that sort of spiritual weekend we had a few months ago where we done the full moon ceremony, we done Udara Sundays. That was my turning point in Bali. That was when I was like, right, I'm really still going to start diving deep into all the spiritual practices here, because them things make me feel so much better, and I had been feeling shit for like the few weeks beforehand. So I basically then after that weekend I went to Ubud, and in Ubud I stayed there for like a week. My friend Avine was up there, and I just started doing all these different spiritual things in Ubud. I had psychic surgery, I think it was called, which is...
I remember you ringing me and I was just like, what the fuck is he talking about?
It is a bit woo-woo like, but at the same time I experienced it, so I can give my experience on it, because it was magical. I had like psychic surgery where this man basically put me on like a surgery table, and I genuinely had my eyes closed and I felt like he was doing surgery on my brain, but he wasn't. It was just energy work, and he was uncovering things from my past that he was like letting go of. And he you know what he said to me at the end, because I had basically been suffering from really bad anxiety from I'll say what it was. Basically I'd really be anxious when I'm surrounded by a big group of Irish lads in particular, just from my late teenage years. And I was suffering from such bad anxiety, and in the group situations, and don't get me wrong, it does come back sometimes because obviously stuff keeps continuing doing work on yourself. But after he done that, he was like, you're not going to get anxious over that situation. And I shit you not, came back after the Ubud week, and I was able to go straight into group situations, just being myself, not giving a shit, talking to everyone. I was like, oh my god, this is a new man. But that's when I done the breathwork as well for the first time with the same guy.
Okay.
I didn't really know what breathwork was. I had heard my friend Nicole talking about it, but I didn't know what it was. Didn't really think much into it. Literally just thought it was like just breathing or whatever. And I done it with him, and his is a bit different than mine, where you breathe through your nose and out through your mouth, and you're sitting up like in a meditative state. Whereas mine's
Really?
like
Sitting up?
you're sitting up, but mine was lying down. Mine's is lying down. And I remember, was it the first one? Basically, every experience is different. So whatever you take from this, if you're going to go into breathwork, going with zero expectations,
Yeah.
because everyone's experience is different. Different things might happen to you, and you might not even get any visuals. You might not get any visions or memories or anything come up, because it could literally just be you releasing trapped energy inside of you.
Oh my god, do you remember me the other day? I was physically shaking.
Spazzing. I seen you glitch a few times.
Oh my god, I remember just shaking, and then I was like, oh my god, I must tell him to turn off the aircon, but then I was like, no, I'm too much into this.
But yeah, so I done it, and I remember basically seeing, I think this week I done it a few times with him, and I remember really meeting my younger version of myself, so like teenage Kegs, who was really going through a hard time, and I had done a few sound healings that week as well, and it was all the same sort of things were coming up, but I kept like basically working with my younger self, which was like 17, 18-year-old Kegs, and I felt his pain, and I've seen how much like he was struggling, and I like was like giving him a hug as if to say it's going to be okay, and then he was like telling me how proud he is of me. And it was just such a nice feeling. I was like bawling my eyes out crying, because I was helping heal that younger version of myself that was inside of me. But then another thing that came up last week was whenever, this was a mad experience actually, so there was a guy who done something really horrible to me when I was a bit younger. I haven't actually spoken about this before, but we'll get into that in another time. But it came up, I never even thought about the situation. I completely blanked that situation in my life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that situation really put me in a downward spiral of negative things to happen in my life over the few years to come after that. And I wasn't even aware that those years stemmed from that situation happening.
Because you didn't realise the impact it had on you.
I completely blanked it out, did not even realise.
I remember you said it to me, and I was like, Kegs, like, what did you just say? That's like really serious. And then you were just like, is it? Oh, okay, we'll go there. So
yeah, I didn't even realize at all, like never even really thought about it. Actually, I remember you actually really helped me understand it. You and Aveen both, you really, from speaking to you about the whole thing that was coming up, it really helped me understand it as well. But yeah, it came up about that situation, and I really started seeing the guy as if I felt sorry for him, and as if I just seen how obviously he must be in a lot of pain, and he must be like have a lot of issues himself if he's able to do that to someone. And my legs started like vigorously vibrating, like they were literally like going like this here, and I felt like I was going to explode. It was mental, and I was like, what the hell? And then I just felt like I was like, I forgive you, and I felt this forgiveness towards the guy, and the energy from my legs exploded out of my legs, up through my body, up through my arms, and out of my hands, and I just sent the forgiveness out to him. It sounds a bit crazy, but it was like how I basically obviously had all this trapped negative energy stored in my legs from that situation, and I was basically able to free myself of that situation. And now I look at that guy, I see him pop up on Instagram and things sometimes, and I'm just like, I have no hatred, no negative energy or no negative thoughts towards that person. I'm just like, do you know what I mean? I'm free of it. I'm free of the situation.
I think that's the important thing, is that when you're healing from these things, when you're facing your past, like you may have anger, you may have resentment, you may hold on to that, but at the end of the day, if you're holding on to that, you're like preventing yourself from moving forward. You're preventing yourself from experiencing peace, happiness, joy. And it's fine to have those emotions. Absolutely process them, hold on to them for as long as you need to move through them. But at the same time, like you said, you need to view it in a different perspective to help yourself heal at the end of the day. You can't change the past, but you can change how you feel about the past and kind of help yourself move through that. And like I said, you may need professional help to do that. Like, and I think as well, I suppose a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like we're kind of in this space a long enough time, I would say. So the stuff that we're talking about today, if you told me we'd be talking about this stuff, I'd be like, she is batshit crazy. She's lost it. Like,
No, I would be like, if I was speaking to myself a few years ago, I'd be like, he needs checked in the mental hospital. And you know what I noticed actually around recently? So obviously my family have came out here, and I'm not even disrespecting them. My mum and dad are quite open-minded, but my brother and sister, they think I have lost the plot, like the stuff I'm saying, and I'm just like, but you need to be around Bali. All the people have these conversations. It's completely normal. But I think you just really need to be curious. Be curious is the advice I would give. Don't close your mind off to it, because we're experiencing it and it's really benefiting our lives. I'm not pushing it down anyone's throat, but I'm also just saying be curious and open your mind a little bit to it.
Yeah, and I think there's like I feel like it's a stepping stone or stairs or scales or whatever, that like you can start off dipping your toe into meditation. You don't need to get to fucking spiritual enlightenment after starting to do meditation. Like, you don't have to start headfirst into breath work and then doing energy work. Like, you just start to go with what feels good for you. So like, I wouldn't have done Reiki until last year. Yesterday I did Reiki training. Today I did Reiki on myself, and oh my fucking god, I haven't even told you.
I love it.
But I like to access these like, I think you always kind of break through, I want to say, to another level. I want to say that you kind of trust that a little bit more, open your mind a little bit more, open your body a little bit more, that you experience things at the level that you're at, I suppose.
I feel like there is different levels. I always think of it like there's different levels. I feel like last week I felt a massive shift in myself, because I've been doing a lot of work on myself, and I just felt the shift. And then I feel like now I'm a wee bit maybe at this next level, because I'm getting a lot of intuitive downloads, especially when I'm doing like Reiki or breathwork on other people, and which I never got before. So I definitely feel like I felt a wee shift. Yeah,
and I think that's a big thing as well, is trusting your intuition. So I would have been very analytical, very logical. So trusting your intuition was like, what the fuck? You're like, again, crazy. It's like,
what does that even mean, like?
So I think, and I also think as well, if you're unhealed, or if you haven't, I won't even say you have to be healed to feel your trauma, or to feel your intuition.
No, definitely not.
But I think you need to, I suppose, to be able to trust your intuition a little bit more, trust yourself. You may have to work through a few different things, not be healed, but work through somewhat to get more connected with yourself, really.
So the way I look at it, and the way I look at breathwork especially, is... So breathwork, is actually the number one growing healing modality now. It's good. It's like overtaking yoga and meditation and everything.
Wow.
It's mad, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway, so breathwork, obviously you're really connecting into yourself, and you're really like releasing trapped energies and trapped traumas and things like that. But the way I look at it is, say, like, so your higher version of yourself's way over here, and you're like pushing yourself, because you're doing the work on yourself, so you're pushing, walking like really fast to try and get to the best version of yourself. But behind you is loads of like chains tied on, and you've like loads and loads and loads of these chains. Some chains are really big because they're your bigger sort of traumas, and you've got all these little chains too. But say whenever you do breath work, you'll be able to like become aware of these chains, or these past traumas, or these negative trapped emotions inside of you. And whenever you become aware of them, you can then understand them, and you can then release them through, like, say, breathwork or plant medicine, or these different things that you can do. And whenever you then release them, then you're one step closer to becoming the best version of yourself. But also these energies are trapped in you, so whenever you release them or get them out, your pathway through your chakras and everything just becomes a lot more clearer, so you're far more connected to your source energy, if this is making sense.
So do you need to be spiritual to do breathwork?
No, absolutely not. They're using breathwork in like clinical centers and things like that.
Hospitals. I think it just got approved in Canada. Like literally it's covered on your insurance. So I think we're talking about it from a very spiritual perspective, because obviously that's what we resonate with. But I suppose, how does it physically change your body? Do you want to talk people through that?
So with breathwork, it basically, there's a lot of different things that could happen. Firstly, mentally, obviously, when you're starting off, you've got loads of these like thoughts coming in. You'll be like, what do you want for breakfast? What do you want for dinner? Like, what the hell are you doing yourself? Why are you breathing like that? This is so stupid. Like, all these stupid and thoughts, not negative, but all these silly thoughts are going to come in and distract you. But just think of those thoughts as clouds, and let those clouds float off, and just really try and focus on the breath. Another thing mentally is that you can really tap into your subconscious mind, so you become in quite a vulnerable state. So when you're in this state, you can really change your mindset, or you can really rewire your subconscious mind, or your programming that maybe like society has programmed you in a way of thinking. I've definitely overcome a few of my limiting beliefs from doing breath work, because I've become aware of the way I was thinking that's come to the surface. I'm thinking like that, and I could definitely be thinking another way. And and you can really really rewire your subconscious mind. So yeah, when you're doing the breath work as well, you can really get rid of the carbon dioxide when you're breathing in, just the way you're breathing. So I'll show you an example. So with my breath work, you start off and you breathe.
So say just for people listening, how's
it's
that movement?
deep into the belly, deep into your chest, and out through your mouth.
Yeah.
And I would not advise you to sit now and go home and do this breath work, because it really is intense and it can really bring up stuff that you might not be ready to deal with. You should definitely do it in a safe environment for your first few times, maybe anyway, because it is a long process. Obviously do Wim Hof and things like that at home alone, that's perfect, but if you're not being watched or supervised, like either by a facilitator through the computer or by a facilitator in person, I wouldn't really recommend doing this like deep breath work, because there's so many different types of breath works out there, and the one I do is quite intense.
Is there what's yours called?
The three-part breath work.
Okay.
So it's deep into the belly, deep into the chest, and out through your mouth, and with that obviously starves yourself from carbon dioxide, but it really, if there's any physical pain in your body, it can really go to there and sort of help relieve that pain. It also lowers the stress hormone as well. Another thing is tetany. So your hands can go up like this into dinosaur claws, right?
That's scary sometimes.
And it can get a wee bit like intense.
Yeah.
But if you sort of use sound or anything like that, but that really shows, what this tetany thing shows is that you're trying to control something in your life, and if you try not to resist and try to let go, then it can become easier. So it's that's sort of the spiritual side of things, to be fair, but yeah, the science part of that is because it's starving yourself from carbon dioxide, but it's completely fine, it's completely normal, so we wouldn't worry too much about it.
And I suppose this can kind of sound a little bit scary, but I think the best part of it is at the end. Like, I think that's what you're kind of building yourself up for. It's like the most relaxing feeling ever. You can actually pass out.
Yeah.
You can feel ultimate bliss, joy. You could cry. You could laugh. There's so many emotions and bodily sensations you can feel at the end of it. And you do a meditation at the end of it, don't you?
Yeah, so that's another, so there's basically 5 things that happen. So we've done the physical, we've done the mental, and then obviously there's the spiritual and intuitive, which I don't really need to touch into right now, but the emotional side of things as well. So obviously it can really bring up trapped emotions and suppressed emotions. So you could feel anger, shame, grief, guilt, all these here negative emotions. You could feel it in that moment, but that's because they're coming to the surface for you to release. And what it really does, because you're really deep into it, it really can release, and you can really vigorously shake out that energy, because you do be shaking and stuff too. And you do cry, you do laugh, all these emotions do come up, but that is a form of release, which is really, really good. And you're saying the thing of bliss. One of my best experiences with breathwork, I had been doing breathwork every single week for a couple of months, and I'd done so much releasing and so much like internal work, that this one was so different, where I was holding my breath at the end and I really connected to my higher self, and it was the nicest feeling I've ever felt in my life, like ever. It was literally just like vibrating with pure bliss, and my body just felt, everything just felt insane. It was like an orgasm, but it wasn't sexual, if that makes sense, but it was a whole body one, and it was just and it was basically my higher self was this is very spiritual, but it was like my higher self was telling me that this is what it feels like to be you, as in like, if you really work at your hardest to connect properly to your soul, to your source energy, this is what you could feel like every single day. So I wonder what the fuck monks feel like, because they're proper connected to themselves, aren't they? Well, some of them probably.
Some of them, yeah.
They're probably feeling bliss every second of the day. Would be nice, like.
Well, I'd say it'd be fucking hard for them as well. They do mad shit. I saw a video the other day, and a monk was hiking up the side of a mountain barefoot, where people were like putting in like a rope and climbing up a rope, and he's just climbing up with his toes. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, they live in harder conditions as well, but at the end of the day, it's like, what's your struggle, what you can still be grateful for, present with, all that stuff. I think my favorite breathwork had been, and maybe this because this is the least resistance I had, or like the least scary things or difficult emotions pop up, was the last one just before I left Bali.
Yeah, we done that together, didn't we?
Yeah, I had an amazing experience where I at the end of it was able to, like, with the what's it called, the claws, when your hands
tetany,
when your hands kind of spasm up and kind of they shut tight, basically. I was able to focus on just letting go and releasing and just breathing into it, and while my hands opened, I saw the lotus flower in my eyes all of a sudden, and it was like it opened, and I have a tattoo of that on my wrist, and it was basically like I had gone full circle with my journey with Bali, like at that moment in time, and I had like blossomed into a lotus flower, and it was like, I ever heard the thing is like no mud, no lotus. It's basically like lotus flower will grow in like dark conditions in the muddy waters basically, but then it comes to the surface and it's beautiful, like they're really
nice.
pretty. Yeah, so that was why I got that tattoo, that like you kind of go through your hard shit in life, but you come through it the other side as like the best version of yourself. And
So I got it as well.
you have it as well? Oh yeah. But that was a really nice experience for me, whereas Kegs was having a really shit experience that time. Remember,
I can't even remember.
You had loads of facilitators trying to help you. I was lying there like in pure bliss, and I was like, he's having an absolute mare over there.
I can't remember what was coming up with that one. But yeah, every experience is different. It's always going with zero expectations, as we say.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of my one, I do a bit of screaming because, like I said before, I like releasing with sound. I just find it so powerful to be able to vibrate that energy out of you through sound. But you do it from your core. And then I do a wee meditation at the end of mine as well, because you're really like vulnerable in that state. You're really into your sort of subconscious at that time. So I like to do practicing gratitude, and I like practicing like love, and I like sort of doing a wee manifestation thing as well, because in that state it is a really good time to sort of do the sort of manifestation things.
Very nice.
So you're really connected to yourself, and whenever you're connected to yourself, manifest whatever the fuck you want.
Okay, so I've got some questions from the audience. Does breathwork help with manifesting, or is it more geared towards clearing trapped emotions?
It's a bit of both. So what I've been saying recently is to go in with an intention. If you want to, obviously you don't have to go into these things with an intention. You can sort of trust the process. Breathwork is really, really good for clearing trapped emotions, 100%. That's what I have been definitely using it for a lot of the time. But there has been times where I've been, like I said at the end of mine, I like to do a manifestation thing, because you're so connected to yourself, and whenever you're connected to yourself, you can get intuitive downloads, and you'll be able to become aware of what you actually want for yourself and what you actually want with your life. And you'll also be able to become aware of things that you actually don't want. You may think you want something, and if you do a bit of breath work, because you're connected to yourself, your higher self, your true self would be like, nah, that probably ain't for you.
Yeah, that's powerful.
But yeah, so I would say breathwork is really powerful for manifesting as well, just because you kind of get clear on what you actually do want, and when you're clear on what you want, then you can sort of manifest it a lot easier.
I think indirectly, because also like when you're releasing emotions, you are getting more connected to yourself, so you can go into it with the intention of not necessarily wanting to manifest, but like you said, it really is powerful for releasing those emotions, for uncovering traumas, etc. And when you are vibrating at the frequency of not coming from lack, you're actually coming from abundance, for self-love, all that kind of stuff. It kind of is the optimal state to manifest, because you don't have an attachment to it. You're not really being like, I really need to get this job. You're like, I really align with getting this job, and it would really mean a lot to me if I got the job, but if I didn't, that's okay. And I don't have a lot of my worth attached to that. I don't have a lot of, you can be sad obviously if you want, but I suppose if you have those unhealed emotions that you can heal through breath work, it might make it more difficult for you to manifest basically.
Oh yeah, massively, 100%. Yeah, I read that.
Okay, next question. Okay, what is the one healing modality that you couldn't do without?
Couldn't do without?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, that's a freaking tough one. I can't decide.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, because obviously I love breathwork so much. It's like my thing. I would say breathwork 100%, because you can just do it whenever. You can just do breathwork whenever. I would say breathwork and plant medicine are on the same sort of level. Obsessed with plant medicine. That's like, it's just done so much wonders for me in my life. So I would put them two on the same sort of level of beneficial for me personally. But yeah, I also love Reiki so much, and I actually combine so I've learned Reiki as well from the same person you've learned from, Flo, shout out, she's class. But yeah, so whenever I'm doing breath work with the group, I would be doing Reiki at the exact same time, so I would be like using Reiki to help release the sort of trapped energies and things too. So pick one. Breathwork, obviously.
I don't know what I'd do. I think I'm only exploring more healing modalities. Like obviously Reiki has just been a new one for me. Meditation has always been my go-to, because I can do that every single day. It helps me regulate my nervous system. It really helps my physical body as well. It really helps my IBS, helps lower cortisol for my PCOS, helps keep me from escalating to having anxiety, etc. So to date, it has been the most powerful and most transformative for me. But in recent months, I have been trying to access different energy states. I've been trying to kind of access Reiki energy almost
Yeah.
by myself, and I've been able to do meditations where I felt myself shift. Like I've had real fucking trippy experiences with meditation, so I found that so powerful for me. But now I'm just starting to kind of explore the other ones. So I think like even today with Reiki, I was like, oh my god, did I just fucking do that? I was like, oh my god. So I think I'm just stepping into more of them. I'm becoming I think I was always open-minded. I never made the time for them really. So for the moment, I think I want to say energy side of things for me.
Yeah.
With I think combined with meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you'll find with the Reiki, when you're doing the Reiki, you're obviously meditating at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I know. I was just like, absolute bliss.
I'm gonna do it to myself today, actually.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
going to do that later.
21 days. Okay. Best advice for someone who feels stuck in uni or not knowing what they want to do in life.
Oh, that's a good question. Stuck in uni or not knowing what you want to do in life. Stuck in what way? As in, like, you don't really know if you want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Suppose.
I think that's such an internal answer you have to get, really.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, I've felt stuck for a long time, and I can go through periods of feeling stuck still in what I'm currently doing, even though I have the vision of, like, where I'm headed or what feels best to me or more aligned with me or what I want to change in the world. But I think at the end of the day, you feeling stuck, you don't need to have a picture to move out of that stuck environment. You just have to kind of put one foot in front of the other and like follow your intuition, follow what feels good for you in that moment.
100%.
Like you don't need to have your whole life figured out in uni, college, whatever, or even after you graduate. Like I've had so many like epiphanies, mental breakdowns, spiritual awakens, whatever you want to call them. And I think it wasn't until I was 25 and I had been working in the industry of my college degree 2 years that I was like, this is not for me. But it was so like, I'm going to talk about that in the next episode, where I was like, oh my God, how could I possibly kind of step outside of this world? But I didn't need, and I was like, how can I make this a possibility, blah, 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 what people think. But it was like, I don't need to make those decisions now. I don't need to know those answers now. And that's what manifesting. You're kind of holding on to the how instead of just trusting what it is that lights you up in that moment. So I think taking one step in front of the other and enjoying the process, not feeling like you need to put so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, don't put so much pressure on yourself. And like at the end of the day, most of us don't know what the fuck we're doing. Realistically, like I'm 24, 25 in a few days time, and I would say only the past few months have I got an idea of sort of what I want to do. Like I still don't know fully what direction I'm going to go in, but I've sort of some sort of idea. But for the past few years, I've not had a clue. I've sort of just been winging it, following my heart and sort of saying yes to opportunities that I think I would enjoy.
Or even not doing things spiritually, just fucking going with the flow. Like just
going with the
flow,
flow,
what's enjoyable as well.
That's what I mean. That's what I had been doing. Like obviously going to them travel places and things. And I remember I was in uni and I knew I did not want to be there, but it was what everyone else wanted me to do. And I was like, it was such a good opportunity, and I was like, this is me set now. I'm going to be doing this, then get the corporate job, all this here, and I hated it. And I felt stuck. I felt so stuck. I did not know what to do. Obviously, the universe forced me to leave that because I got sacked, but I wanted to leave for so long before that anyway, and I just didn't do it because I don't know if I didn't trust myself. I don't know what it was, but I was trying to please other people. And then I remember the day I got sacked, the first thing that I said to my two mates who were meeting me outside the door of the office, they were like, so what are you going to do now? I was like, I'm going to go traveling. I just knew that that's deep down what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do for so long. Yeah. Didn't know how I was going to do it. Had no money. Didn't know anyone who was traveling really. Didn't have a fucking clue. I was just like, I do not care. I'm going to follow my heart. I'm going to do what I want. And I just took that one step, went out of the comfort zone, just went after what I sort of knew what I wanted. And then just winged it, went with the flow, just followed different things and kept going with the flow. Now here I am.
You figure it out as you go.
Yeah, and sort of trust yourself in a way, and just sort of, you really have to just go out of your comfort zone. And really just sort of think about, is this what I actually want to do?
Okay, my question. What's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Whew. Let me see. One piece of advice I give to my younger self.
You can say more than one if you need to.
Okay, yeah. Don't let, oh my God, no, wait.
Like, which one?
I would always say try not to give a fuck what other people think. Yeah, don't give a shit about anyone else thinks, and don't try and pretend to be someone that you're not to try and fit in. Just be yourself, and that will get you places. From being yourself, I suppose. And I feel like there's way more. It's my younger self. Let me think of my younger Kegs here.
Deep in meditation.
I don't know. Just follow your heart and do what you want to do for you.
Love it.
I suppose short and simple.
Well, thank you so much for being my first guest on the pod. It's been brilliant. Like, we touched on so many different things there, and like I think these are our normal chats as well, aren't they?
I feel like we could have spoke for about 5 hours.
I know. We were messing at the start, being like, we're going to start our own talk show.
Season 3, the Health Fun and the Kegs podcast combined.
Love it. But yeah, thank you so much.
Ish.
Thank you so much for listening. If you vibe with this episode, I really hope that you can pass it on to someone. There's a lot of nuggets in there, things that you can learn from, like real life experience and stepping out of your comfort zone and trying new things as well, doing things differently as well.
If you are interested in trying breathwork and you're in Bali, hit me up. I will also be starting doing online breathwork sessions in the near future, so check out my Instagram, Kegs97. I will be putting updates on there for anyone who wants to try breathwork for the first time.
Love it. I was going to ask where people can find you, but there you go.
Yeah.
And TikTok as well. But yeah, thank you so much. As always, would really appreciate if you could subscribe, share this episode, pass it on to a friend, and leave a review in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Namaste, bitches.
Woo!